There has never been, and probably never will be, a sporting event to equal what happened on March 8th, 1971. The entire world stopped spinning.
It was a fight between two of the greatest fighters that ever lived, Joe Frazier and Muhammad Ali, and it was awesome.
This was one of the most brutal heavyweight championship fights in the history of boxing. These are two guys that gave everything they had.
That fight there, without question, was one of the most highly anticipated fights in boxing history, bar none.
It's the one fight they've built up that lived up to the expectations.
You look at the excitement of it. Madison Square Garden, Ali Frazier, all the people, all the newspapers.
The Ali-Frazier first fight will go down as one of the top dramatic sporting events of all time.
Never before and never since have two undefeated heavyweights of this stature met in the ring with the World Heavyweight Championship at stake. Muhammad Ali, undefeated, yet stripped of his title due to his religious beliefs and returning to the ring after a 3.5-year exile from boxing. Undefeated champion Joe Frazier, as powerful and dominant a fighter as the sport had ever seen, and seemingly opposite in nearly every way to his flashy opponent. On March 8th, 1971, one of the most highly anticipated sporting events in history would become reality. And the reality of Muhammad Ali versus Joe Frazier would be a boxing match for the ages, and an event that will forever be known as the fight of the century, and a defining moment in the history of Madison Square Garden.
We had not seen, there had not been recorded in boxing history, a fighter who was as big and fast and graceful and, dare I say it, beautiful as Ali was.
We really hadn't seen a heavyweight with that type of movement, that type of elusiveness, and that type of power.
He was beautiful, he was graceful, he was artistic.
And it confused people, frankly. The heavyweight champion was supposed to be a terror in the ring. And here came this big, fast athlete who could move like a smaller man and was bold.
He is the greatest of all time because he's the one fighter that brought speed and power to the game that had never been seen before.
If you look at him, he looks more like a model when it's prime than a prize fighter. And to see him go in there and fight so game to the bitter end, he's the kind of guy you have to kill him to beat him.
He was a showman, he was an entertainer, he was the best.
Joe's gonna come out smoking, and I ain't gonna be joking. I'll be pecking and a-poking, pouring water on his smoking. Then this might shock and amaze you, but I will destroy Joe Frazier.
They called him Smoking Joe.
It literally meant the bell would ring. He came out like there was smoke behind him.
Yancey Dorham actually said that one time when he was fighting in an arena that there was smoke coming off of his back because it was so hot in the arena.
When he fought, something was going to happen, and he was a real kind of a boxing soldier.
He was like a wind-up doll. They put him in the corner, he'd come out, bam, left hook, left hook, left hook, body shots.
Consistent pressure, very perpetual motion, constantly on top of you, not giving you a chance to breathe.
Joe kept coming forward, bobbing and weaving, throwing that big hook.
Joe Frazier was a fighting machine. He was a small heavyweight, but what a left hook.
There were those who rooted for Ali on some deep emotional, visceral level, or wanted to see his big mouth shut up.
Former world heavyweight champion Cassius Clay refused to take the oath of induction into the Army. The black Muslim fighter, who's also known as Muhammad Ali, was immediately stripped of his title by the World Boxing Association.
In 1967-68, Ali was drafted into the Army, refused to go, said he was a conscientious objector, and said he was a Muslim minister.
He understood what the Islamic purpose of war was. If you can't exist as one serving God, then you could fight in the war. But the Vietnam War is something he didn't believe in.
So the boxing commissions exiled him.
The 3 best years of his life, they took it away from him. He didn't care. He took a stand.
Folks saw him as the evil. You know, he was an American hero, won the Olympics, and he should respect America.
He was a very controversial figure because of his stance on the war in Vietnam, because he had changed religions.
And in the meantime, Frazier became the heavyweight champion. So when they came to Madison Square in March of 1971 to fight, they were the 2 undefeated heavyweight champions of the world.
And unfortunately, I think Frazier became symbolic to the white conservative group, the pro-war. And you had the African Americans, the counterculture, free spirits, and the hippies voting for my dad. So it really was more than just 2 guys fighting in the ring. It was socially significant.
Heavyweight boxers Joe Frazier and Muhammad Ali meet in New York's Madison Square Garden Monday night in what one promoter calls the biggest fight since Cain tangled with Abel. Others are content to call it the fight of the century. But in any case, as Hughes Rudd reports, it's most certainly boxing's biggest business deal ever.
Jack Cook was the 77th person that I talked to and asked to put up the money. The most that they had ever paid for fighters up to then had been $750,000. So $5 million, $2.5 million to each fighter was way out there in left field. But we both agreed that this thing would be a huge, huge fight, bigger than any fight, certainly during the 20th century. Cook wanted to fight at the Forum. It was his building, but Joe had tried to get a boxing license out here in California some years earlier, and he couldn't because he had a detached retina. So Cook was very, very disappointed, and I was concerned that he was going to pull out the backing because he couldn't have it in his building. He grit his teeth and said, okay. And in retrospect, that was the place to hold it, was at Madison Square Garden.
This is one of those great events that hyped itself.
There was nothing like the pre-fight hype going into the Joe Frazier-Muhammad Ali one. Everyone was talking about it.
That's what Ali did. He was the greatest showman of all time, and he was his own promoter. This guy could promote any fight, any time.
Of course, the room was packed, and Ali, in his usual self, was trying to be the showman he is, and he was magnificent.
I predict that when I meet Joe Frazier, this will be like a good amateur fighting a real professional. This will be like a kid out of the Olympics meeting the fastest heavyweight champion that ever lived. This will be no contest. This fight will be much easier. He will be easier to hit. He will not be as much trouble or as awkward as Oscar Bonavino.
Frazier did not back down on anything. He was right there with Ali. They were challenging each other.
This is the day, man. You understand? I just want you not fighting Glory. You're not fighting Oscar Bonavena. You're not fighting Sonny Liston. You fighting Joe Frazier.
You see fighters talking junk and trying to get each other to go, but no. Joe Frazier was real. Muhammad Ali was real. It was serious.
He's calling Joe, starting out calling Joe names. You know, you're ugly, Joe. And I thought they were going to get into a fight there.
One more thing, with the commissioner here and the whole world of authority, I beat Sonny Liston twice, and they wasn't convinced.
That's all over.
Let me finish.
Now you ain't fighting Sonny Liston. You fight to me. No, you listen. You listen now. Look, I'm the champ. You ain't. You listen.
He would get into his fighters' heads. I mean, it's a psychological warfare. He would talk trash, and he called Joe ugly. He called Joe this and that, and those things do work.
If Joe Frazier whoops me, I'm getting on my hands and my knees. Crawl across the ring. Look up to you. Say you're the champion.
As a kid growing up, coming from Youngstown, Ohio, you know, I couldn't stand that. Joe Frazier's gonna beat him. Joe Frazier's my guy. You know, who could root for a guy who brags like that, who says those type of things?
He couldn't understand why he was calling him hard names. An Uncle Tom, or Gorilla. He thought that was very offensive and unnecessary. We're here to fight. We're here to box.
Ali was a revolutionary figure who saw an opportunity to sell himself, to be himself as this larger-than-life kid, and sides were drawn. There were those who rooted for Ali on some deep, emotional, visceral level, or wanted to see his big mouth shut up.
There was a collective gasp throughout 20,000 people in Madison Square Garden. When they took off their robes, people were like, it's really here. It's here.
Ali Frazier one drew an incredible amount of celebrities. Everybody wanted a ticket. Don Dunphy, the greatest voice in the history of boxing, called the fight. His analyst was not some sports writer or anybody like that. It was Burt Lancaster.
The Kennedys were there. Teddy was there. Ethel was there.
Frank Sinatra was taking pictures for, I think, Life magazine. He was taking pictures for them.
I never seen so many fur coats, and they were on the men.
Certainly in my life, it was the most exciting event I've ever attended.
And the greatest line was the announcer in the ring, just before the fight, saying, ladies and gentlemen, we're not going to introduce all the celebrity and show people here tonight because everybody is here tonight.
Muhammad Ali in the ring, in a beautiful, beautiful red and white robe. There comes Joe Frazier, ladies and gentlemen.
Now, they get in the ring. I remember, you know, Ali obviously being the flashy guy. He had a fantastic robe. He had the tassels on his shoes. Joe Frazier had the Smokin' Joe robe, which made him seem even more furtive and dangerous. And when they took off their robes, people were like, it's really here. It's here.
And now we're ready. Hundreds of millions are seeing this bout around the world. A packed house at Madison Square Garden.
It was one of those fights where it was building momentum. Each round, it got more and more violent. With Muhammad, he was just moving around, just jabbing and being pretty and moving his head around. And Joe just trying to get that left hook in there. Joe just kept, and he never stopped trying.
And Ali said to him, don't you know I'm God? And Frazier started punching back, and he said, well, God, you're in the wrong place tonight because you're going to get an ass whooping tonight.
Ali really couldn't be the runner. He just didn't have that athletic ability anymore. So he had to stop and punch.
The Muhammad Ali that we remember 3.5 years ago was a dancer. He's not dancing tonight. He may be trying to slug with Joe.
Ali, because he couldn't run, would throw a punch, and the expressions lay in the middle. And that's when Frazier would catch him, usually with the left hook.
Ali was parrying Frazier. He was taking some shots from Frazier and mugging to the audience, as he often did. I remember thinking, this is a mistake.
There was just no denying Frazier. And if anything, all of Ali's misrepresentation of Frazier just pumped Frazier up more. These were the things that had worked for Ali in the past. They didn't work that night. If anything, they just made Frazier that much more determined, and Joe was able to harness his incredible energy and have it all pour out over the 15 rounds of the fight.
The round is over. The round is over. What a round. Muhammad Ali was really out that time.
And the performance of the two fighters is such that it's a war for round after round, and people talk about it for year after year. That makes it a fight of the century.
The Stat of the Moment is presented by SAP. The average ringside ticket price for the fight of the century was $150. Ringside tickets for today's biggest fights have seen over a 200% increase in average price.
Fight, and what a fight it's been.
15 and final round. It made for 15 rounds of tremendous, tremendous drama. Every round, round 1 to 15, frontward, backward, forward. Every round was so close and competitive.
Coming down the stretch, the fight was still up for grabs.
Frazier rarely threw a jab in the fight. He was looking for the big punch. He let Ali punch maybe 2 or 3 times. Then he'd come back with his own punch. Missing a lot, but landing some big shots also.
I can hardly forget what Angelo Dundee said so memorably. He was out when he was hit, and he was up when his ass hit the floor, saying in effect that Ali's will is what enabled him to survive.
I don't think anyone had doubted Frazier had done enough to build a lead.
He takes the mandatory 8 count. The only knockdown of the fight.
But when he floored Ali with that left hook that he brought up from South Philly, that was an exclamation point on the fight.
The crowd was on its feet, most of them cheering for, hopefully, a Frazier knockout, but Ali survived.
I remember thinking, well, I know in my heart of hearts, my idol, Cassius Clay, Muhammad Ali, got beat. But I'm sitting there at ringside in the ringside seat he had given me, and I'm thinking, maybe they'll give it to Ali. Maybe he's going to get the benefit of the doubt.
Unanimous decision, and still champion of the world, Joe Frazier. Joe Frazier. For the first time in his career, Muhammad Ali was beaten.
Nobody would have beat Joe Frazier that night. I don't care if Ali came out with bazookas and shot him at them. He wasn't going down.
It's one of those rare occasions where the highest expectations are exceeded.
That fight, nobody was disappointed because Frazier's 15th round knockout solidified the deal. The action was tremendous. It lived up to its hype. And when fighters rise to the moment, there's nothing in sports quite like it.
This was one of the most brutal heavyweight championship fights in the history of boxing. These are two guys that gave everything they had. That was the yardstick in which every great fight, especially heavyweight fights, would be judged by.
The fighters of today owe Muhammad Ali and Joe Frazier everything. It's because of those two fighters, those two warriors, those two individuals who left it in the ring for themselves, but now it's for us, without question.
It's one of those rare events that even transcended the highest expectations. So it is an indelible event in the minds of everybody who lived through those times.
When the world stops to watch something, you know it's big. When two fighters enter the ring, heavyweights, and they're both undefeated, that's big. When the celebrities come out in hordes to watch something, that's big. And when the performance of the two fighters is such that it's a war for round after round, and people talk about it for year after year, that makes it a fight of the century.